Erika Kirk, the widow of the U.S. right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk, has spoken publicly for the first time since her husband's death, promising to continue his political movement. Now, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed on Wednesday while speaking at a university in Utah. Authorities say they've arrested a suspect after a family member helped turn him in.
Heartbroken mourners came together to honor the memory of Charlie Kirk. His widow Erika has given her first public remarks after US authorities announced the alleged assassin had been captured.
The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry.
The 31-year-old Charlie Kirk was shot on Wednesday while addressing a large crowd at Utah Valley University. A 33-hour manhunt ended after the suspect's father convinced him to surrender to police. Neighbors and friends of the 22-year-old alleged shooter find it difficult to believe.
I don't know, I think this is really unexpected. I didn't see it coming at all.
I've lived here for about 8 or 9 years, and it's been a relatively quiet and peaceful neighborhood.
I would think that his family would be very hurt. I have a lot of sympathy for his family right now, his parents and his loved ones, that they have to really be hurting.
The state of Utah has the death penalty for such crimes, a punishment President Trump has said he would like to see imposed. Similar demands have been voiced among the supporters of the prominent right-wing activist.
I feel good because there needs to be an example made out of people who commit attacks on freedom of speech.
I feel good about the fact that they arrested him, but it's not over.
Kirk's assassination is the latest in a cycle of political violence in a deeply divided America. Unless those divisions can be addressed, that cycle looks set to continue.
Let's get more on this from political analyst Liz Schuelke. She joins us now from Baltimore. Good to have you with us, Liz. Now, we've heard the words from Charlie Kirk's widow there. How would you describe the political temperature in the U.S. at this moment after this killing?
Absolutely. It is a political temperature that has been simmering to a boiling point conservatively, you could say for a year. But I think if you look deeper in American history, it has been happening for the last 10 or 15 years. And this moment seems to speak further to that tension, that division, the tendency on both sides of the aisle to see an us versus them. And I think there are a lot of valid reasons why prominent folks have called for peace and forgiveness over giving in to that tension and anger and blaming at the moment.
And the thing is, we have this suspected shooter who's now in custody, but much of the anger doesn't seem to be centered around the shooter per se. It seems to be this bigger thing.
Absolutely. The statement that President Trump put out on the day of the assassination, the shooting, he really focused on the radical left. Since then, facts about the shooter have come out that might say he is not personally a member of the radical left. And you've only seen a slight change in the rhetoric in some of President and his close allies. They're now saying the radical left is to blame for this rhetoric, even if they didn't cause it or that wasn't the perceived ideology of the shooter, that the division is created by those on the left calling those on the right very divisive, aggressive names at the moment. So it seems the official line for folks in the MAGA camp has been to continue to focus on the left as at least the motivating factor.
The governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, called this killing a watershed in American history. Can you put that into context for us?
Absolutely. I think it's that boiling point we're talking about. And I think what Governor Cox is speaking to is we're boiling over. A lot of people have referenced this feels like the 1960s in America, where there was a lot of political unrest, shootings and assassinations. I think this is a watershed moment where folks can step back and say, are we going to give into that violence? Are we going to continue choosing to us versus them, which is exactly in Governor Cox's speech, where he says we have a choice to make here, or are we going to choose a way to find peace, unity, to focus on being Americans rather than giving into these extremist ideals? I completely agree with him. I think this is a real litmus test for what will America look like in the coming days and years, is how its citizens choose to react to this.
And how much of that conversation is going on, that conversation about unity?
I think it is going on. One place that you're going to see it really happening is among governors. I think in the last several years of political division, a force that continues to promote working across the aisle, Americans over politics, is governors, which is why you see Governor Cox promoting this as well. You'll see the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, really championing Governor Cox and saying this is who he is. He promotes Americans over politics. So there is a lot of folks that, governors and mayors, they work with people. They don't just work in politics. So it is their best interest to be someone that works with all of the people they represent. So I think if you look to those executives, you're going to see people calling for that unity over division that we might be seeing maybe more from the online political and Washington politicals at the moment.
Okay, we appreciate your insights, Liz Schuelke, political analyst. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Arie Perliger, a professor of security studies at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, joins from Vancouver, Canada. Professor, you have said that political assassinations come in waves. How concerned are you about the rhetoric we're seeing in political circles potentially fueling that wave?
Yes, I think there's significant concerns. I think that the foundational problems or the systematic problems that really generated this recent wave of assassinations is still exists, still active. I'm talking about this extreme polarization within the political system as well as within American society. This process of dehumanizing, delegitimizing political rivals. This process of seeing any act, any policy of political rivals as an existential threat, as something which is catastrophic, and in general, the dysfunction of the political system where both parties cannot really promote any kind of bipartisan collaboration or policies. All these factors together generate this kind of ecosystem that eventually push people to the extremes and to the point where they're willing really to use violence against their political rivals.
Charlie Kirk's widow said her husband's killer has, quote, no idea what you've unleashed across this entire country, end quote. She even depicted her message as a battle cry. Are you worried some people might hear that resolve as a call for more violence?
Definitely. I think that if you look at the current discourse, definitely we see voices on the right, on the far right, that basically arguing that the assassination attempts against President Trump, at that time candidate Trump, the current attack, the attack that occurred a couple of days ago, reflect the growing willingness of the left to use violence, and they believe that we're getting into the point where they believe that retaliation is legitimized, is justified. And again, this is part of this kind of a spiral loop of polarization and extremism where both sides truly believe that the other side represent an actual threat to their political vision, to their leaders, and so on.
A spiral loop. I hope we're not being hyperbolic, but I am compelled to ask, have we reached a point where political violence has almost become normalized? And to what extent is the current political rhetoric driving it?
So I think that when political leaders basically portray political rivals as illegitimate, as a threat to the nation, to the republic, to democracy. And when this kind of language is consistent and systematic, that sends signals and messages to their followers that the situation is dire. And of course, it also sends a message that the political process is dysfunctional and that people should look maybe for other ways to promote their political goals. I think relatedly, of course, this is also provide this kind of a justification for the willingness and for the support of political violence. We've seen that recent polls show that both on the left and on the right, we have around between 20 and 30% who are admitting that they will support political violence under some conditions. I don't think we ever had such a situation where such a significant part of the population were willing to consider and to accept the tool of political violence.
This shooting happened on a college campus. You're a college professor. How are young people experiencing this?
So I think we need to be honest that in the last several years, university campuses became a very contentious spaces. We've seen that, following the Gaza war, and we've seen that also in the recent elections. Unfortunately, campuses are not a place for intellectual debate with nuance and with sensitivities. I think what happens on many campuses is that they became basically another space where both sides can clash, and they really don't listening to each other. They don't talk with each other. They just performing on campuses. And we've seen how things can escalate very, very quickly. And unfortunately, this kind of environment on campuses leads in some cases to violence, to some cases to disruptions. And it's a really, I think, a sad situation because, again, campuses are the place where people should be able to debate, to exchange ideas, and to engage in nuance and complicated and sophisticated and sensitive discussions. But that's not the case anymore. There's no really discussions. There's no really efforts to really building bridges. There's more just, every side engage in these performative actions.
Arie Perliger in Vancouver, many thanks to you.
Thank you very much.